jeez. Does it spin the disc over the... Okay, alright, that's how it works.
Sequels are tricky. Taking a second swing at an idea that worked great the first time comes with a lot of challenges. In Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, Intelligent Systems went for changes in some areas and improvements in others. In choosing to strengthen the mechanics while reinventing the story, they created a fresh experience that, to this day, gets praised as the best Paper Mario game.
Okay, but it'd be so easy to just praise this game to the moon, right?
I'm pretty open about the fact it's my own personal favorite Paper Mario game. So, how the hell do I even make this review interesting? I'm going to dig a little deeper on this one.
I can't just come out of this with nothing to criticize, right?
This is the granddaddy of Paper Mario games. The one game Nintendo is so sick of having every Paper Mario game compared to that they won't re-release it. I know, that's pretty speculative, but look at how many consoles the original Paper Mario was available on. I get that the Wii could play GameCube games anyway. Hell, that's what I'm using to get this footage looking so good. Well, that and a sharpening filter.
Clearly, Nintendo was objective enough to find faults, so one of my goals for this review will be to put Thousand-Year Door under a microscope.
I can remember starting my first playthrough of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door as a kid, and my first thought literally being that the GameCube was showing off just how much more powerful it was than the Nintendo 64. It pretty much spent the tutorial time showing us that they can make a mini crowd and have them do something like this. It really stood out to me just how much smoother the animations were and how much better it felt to play. Building off the art style of the original game, they created what I would almost call an objective visual upgrade over the original. This was just straight up impressive at the time. They didn't just improve the art style by making the game shinier though. In fact, they did quite the opposite in some ways. We're not in the Mushroom Kingdom anymore, folks. We're treated to the hub area of the game, while the Mushroom Kingdom looks clean, majestic, vibrant. Rogueport looks like Lawrence or Fitchburg or something. A local reference for any sort of Massachusetts viewers. Someone gets beat up in the background during a dialogue scene. You straight up get robbed. There's alleyways with cockroaches and shit. Rogueport is dirty, and it's not afraid to show it. A very bold move on Intelligent Systems' part, and probably one of the more praised aspects of the game. So in familiar fashion, guess what happens? Peach is kidnapped. Didn't see that coming, did ya? We meet female Goombella, I think. She can headbutt and reveal the enemy's attack power. Wait a minute. Well, it's a sequel, right? A direct sequel, nonetheless. No harm in reusing some familiar elements. Besides, this game is typically praised for its originality. How unoriginal could it possibly be? Oh, god damn it. Are we feeling just a little familiar here? Full town of Koopas. Well, maybe they'll surprise us with our second Oh my god, really? At least his backstory has to be original, right? Okay, yes, actually. His father disappeared 10 years ago, and he has a girlfriend. That's something, I guess. So the design of this first dungeon isn't anything too original or groundbreaking. In fact, it again looks kinda familiar. But we do get some clever uses of our first paper abilities. Oh yeah, you get paper abilities. I absolutely adore the way each of these abilities are introduced. It's a running gag where this guy begs you to let him out of the treasure chest and then proceeds to curse you, curse in air quotes, with a new ability, as if he's ruining your life or something. It's a great example of the kind of charm and scenarios the Paper Mario team are capable of coming up with, which I think is one of Paper Mario's greatest strengths. The game's first boss continues to lean into this strength. He's manipulative and scheming in a hilariously transparent way, and a little aside, he hates crickets a lot. So if you were paying attention in the dungeon and connected the dots, you'd get a bit of an advantage in the fight by equipping the right badge. The story of Chapter 1 resolves in a very heartwarming way, and we're into the next chapter. After a quick look at what's going on with Peach and Bowser. Like the first Paper Mario game's Peach bits, we now get similar Peach bits in the enemy's lair, as well as some Bowser bits. The Peach bits in this game revolve around a silly but heartwarming love story between Peach and the Xnauts computer network, as Peach helps this computer learn about love in exchange for sending Mario information about where she is and helpful hints about where to go next. He receives his email through his Game Boy Advance SP in this alternate reality where Nintendo rules the world. And after this, the game starts getting really creative with its that's a tongue twister, with its aesthetic choices. And after this, the game really starts getting creative with its aesthetic choices. Damn, that was hard to say. In Chapter 2, you get a wonderful visual shift into this really unique looking place. We sort of have this woodsy yet totally distinct look about the place that, when combined with the music, has a rather calming effect. One aside I want to make for just a second about Paper Mario is how much I love the music, especially in areas like this. My favorite example is Shooting Star Summit in the first game, but songs like this and the music inside the tree hold a very special place in my sleep playlist. I completely neglected to talk about the music in my review of the first game, so I wanted to mention it here. You get really atmospheric pieces like the two I just mentioned, but then you also get bangers like the music they use for the sewers. I never thought exploring a sewer could be a total bop, but here we are. Anyway, back to the chapter. After you progress to a certain point in the chapter, you meet your next teammate. I mean, no T rating, so I can shock react for the lulz or whatever, but I'll give an honest opinion. I like this partner. She's funny, she has a unique design, she's full of personality. Her moveset fits her personality. She does this devastating body slam. She can blow things aside to reveal secrets. First original partner, and she may be a little risque. Is she supposed to be naked here? Come to think of it, a lot of the animations in Thousand Year Door are surprisingly ambiguous for a game that looks so good. What is he grabbing here? Is he holding on to her hand? Is that her? I mean, after all, she is his big titty cloud girlfriend, am I right, fellas? I know, this is supposed to be his pointer finger, but who the fuck makes this gesture, like, ever? You get a bit of freedom in cartoons, and there are plenty of gestures that look natural in cartoons and not in real life. But, like, what's he doing here? No, 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 no. Stop that, Mario. Stop. Yeah, I'm not going there, man. Can someone explain why Mario is such a desirable man, apparently? Like, everyone just wants to, Yeah, I don't think he asked for this. Is this what Intelligent Systems thinks all women are like? Okay, this sort of topic is way out of my wheelhouse, so, once you enter the tree, you get a pretty decent mix of storytelling, exploration, and enemy battles. You build up to a large collections of punies to follow you around, both serving as something to keep track of and consider while you move around, as well as a little showing off of the GameCube's power. The puny orb allows you to gather them all in one spot. One cool use of this that I find both clever and also kind of annoying is once you get them across this gap, you put the orb on the other side and blow them off. I find it cool because they don't tell you, but it's also not super hard to figure out, making it a bit of a fun discovery reward kind of thing, making you feel all clever. The annoying part is that not all the punies interact with the wind immediately, so you have to reposition and keep going. It gets a little annoying when you have to do it multiple times and go back and forth. It was good the first time, but a little redundant by the end. The boss fight at the end pushes you up against a time limit, which was a fun aspect I enjoyed about the fight, and the escape. Overall, I think Chapter 2 was pretty solid. The controls feel super smooth. Whereas Paper Mario expands upon Super Mario RPG by adding some variety in the action commands, rather than just a single button press for every attack, Thousand Year Door adds even more. Move the reticle and draw around the enemies, for example. The star power attacks also have action commands rather than just happening. Your partner now has a health bar to manage and can go in front to take the hits for you. This has tons of new implications for the player to devise battle strategies. The badge points don't max out at 30 anymore, so there's a lot more opportunity to use the badges to alter how you battle. The overworld feels awesome to move around in. In general, they actually fudge in quite a few concepts and mechanics without any of it feeling overwhelming or confusing. I honestly can't heap enough praise on the overall polish this game has from a gameplay perspective. Mario looks and feels incredible to move around and battle with, and to this date, this is probably my favorite iteration of the Paper Mario battle mechanic system, which has since gone through many revisions, but has yet to surpass what this game perfected. I have some seriously mixed feelings about Chapter 3, though. In short, I would give it an A+ for originality and storytelling, but an F when it comes to variation. The concept of this chapter is that you enter a city in the sky, and the whole place is essentially run by a wrestling company. There's some amusing parody of the wrestling business and the whole corruption, sketchiness that goes on behind the scenes, but also just some of the general attitude and atmosphere. You have to work your way up the card, and in the meantime, you solve a mystery while the wrestlers go missing. A fun mystery plot unfolds. It's enticing, funny, and also it's a good thing it pushes you to keep going with that because 90% of the gameplay in this chapter are literally just the matches. Don't get me wrong, I love the battle mechanics. Usually games benefit from variation in the gameplay though. One thing that's actually pretty consistent across all the Paper Mario games though is solid exploration with fluid controls and satisfying discoveries. Paper Mario works to keep the player pulled in by switching up these different scenarios and stories. Through a mix of masterful overworld design with well-executed exploration concepts, satisfying battle mechanics, and an engaging story, you get a great balance. This chapter mixes up the formula by shifting the balance very far in the direction of battle. It's not like you don't do other stuff. They find ways of disguising it as discovery. You feel like you did something clever when you break this block with your new hammer and acquire this letter. But the problem here is that for most of this The game tells you exactly what to do as part of the mystery. The one part I think does show a hint of letting the player take what they learned and apply it is when you blow this picture out of the way, mirroring when you were told to do the same thing earlier to discover this toilet pipe and make it to the match in time. That was actually pretty good, but that kind of thing where they don't just give away what you're supposed to do is pretty lacking, and most of what you do in this chapter anyway is work your way up the card, so at least to me, the balance felt pretty off. Furthermore, we're 3 chapters in, and 2 of them have me reevaluating things a little bit.
Could it be? Could this game have been rushed?
The next area honestly doesn't help here. Whereas there are plenty of arguments to justify the last area's heavy focus on battles and story, the next area is actually balanced. It's just painfully easy. Like, you go through this Twilight-themed forest. Don't get me wrong, the theming here is wonderful. But you go through this straightforward forest with, like, 2 enemies. You reach this castle with 4 areas, basically. Do a fake-out boss fight, which admittedly totally got me. Like, the gag was good. The lead-up and follow-up are pretty weak, though. You backtrack to get your new partner. Backtrack again. Use this partner's new ability to solve the puzzle. Backtrack back to Dupless. Backtrack again to the castle and beat him again. The story aspect of this area is good, and there's at least one decent brain teaser here, but the structure is easy and tedious. Honestly, I blew through this part pretty quickly. I think Twilight Town is the weakest bit in Paper Mario, personally. The good news is we only go up from here. A knock against the island, since there was an island in the original Paper Mario, I've actually got these 2 mixed up in my head when playing the other game. Like, wait, where's the part where the volcano erupts? Oh, wait, no, it's a pirate ship sequence. Unfortunately, because it's easy to make direct comparisons, it's easy to point out how much more effort the first Paper Mario is putting into the layout of its areas. The island jungle in the first Paper Mario game was big enough, I actually used to get lost as a kid. The whole area was used to explore the swimming mechanics. It has multiple directions you can go to find the items that will lead you forward, whereas Thousand Year Door only has a handful of areas and is extremely straightforward about it. I think it's safe to say, in general, Thousand Year Door isn't overly concerned with making larger or more challenging lead-ups just to get to its dungeons, but would usually put a heavier emphasis on its story. The cave, however, is a different story entirely. It puts us right back on track from where we were with Hooktail's lair and the Puny Tree. Playing not only with our puzzle-solving skills, but in a rarity for Thousand Year Door, our spatial awareness skills as well. It might even be one of the most solid dungeon areas in the game, topping off with not 1, but 2 boss fights. I think this chapter's touching story writing meets great game design and leaves us with a very solid gameplay experience. Since it was apparent the tight gameplay was going to happen in the dungeon, they used the island to create stakes and focus on the emotional build-up instead. It's a prime example of Paper Mario at its best, in my opinion.
You know how I said the pre-dungeon areas focus pretty heavily on story? This next chapter is like 90% story.
And, also, it's good. A bit on the easy side. Like, yeah, there's having the intuitive thinking to read the dialogue and figure out who to talk to. When I was a kid, I didn't. I just talked to different NPCs until things happened, and it totally worked. If you do actually pay attention, though, there's very fun scenarios at play with some pretty clever dialogue. Oh, he called Mario Luigi. I get it, 'cause, like, you know.
Luigi. Luigi is his brother.
Oh, and there's a boss fight in an easy puzzle section, preceded with a pretty funny scene where Dupless steals the wrong star. You get to play with your new jump move a bit. If you look a little farther than you have to, the game rewards you with a Luigi skin. Best discovery in the game, in my opinion. I guess also making the detective penguin write about you being Luigi. It's easy, but kinda cool that it didn't end with the boss fight. It was pretty entertaining as well. Oh, and as a side note, when Bowser finally makes it here, the joke that the detective thinks you're Luigi comes back around in a hilarious bit that actually had me on the floor. Like, what even? Luigi beat me to the crystal star? What the fuck? More praise for the writing in this game, which is as A+ as ever. It's one of the things that make playing Paper Mario so damn enjoyable.
What follows is a fetch quest.
I mean, the first game had one, and I guess it's an excuse to use the warp pipes underground, but like, I'm gonna call this what it is. It's padding. Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door has padding. There you go. You go and fetch the rich Bob. Then you go look for the white Bob, who was here, but no wait, he just left and he's actually here. No, he's here. Here. Oh my god, make it fucking stop. Just get to the fucking point already. I want to get to the next part. God damn it, where the oh, there he is. Eventually, you're back to where you started, and hurdy-dur, he was here the whole time. Sure, it's funny, but how dare you be joking with me right after I did a padding-ass fetch quest. Lame.
Now, I've been criticizing this game pretty heavily for its lack of effort in some of the areas on its level design, but let me take a step back and explain why, in spite of this, what this game is doing totally works anyway.
Every other element in this game is so strong that even though some of the parts of the game are a little lacking in the overworld design, the battle mechanics are the tightest Paper Mario has ever been out of any of their games. The aesthetics of most of these areas, original or not, are super memorable. Unlike most Paper Mario games, there are a decent number of original themes. The A+ scenario writing, the funny dialogue, the unique changes of pace. Yes, I changed my mind. This is a good thing now. Mess with the formula, fuck the system. Make no mistake about it. Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door is undisputedly the best Paper Mario game. If someone were to say the game was too straightforward though, I would see where they were coming from. So, with all that out of the way, let's move on to the last few areas of the game.
You know, when I was a kid, one run-on joke I was on for a while was just putting things in space. Like, for example, Tom Cruise in space. Or Big Bird in space. Or, how about, yeah, that one.
Once you get past the excitement of the aesthetics, someone tell me the people complaining about long-ass treasure chest openings or slowing down the cart sections in Yooka-Laylee, where the fuck were they during this tediousness? I don't think slowing it down and changing up the mechanics is inherently bad, but like, bruh, you included a higher jump and there's no platforming. You really could have taken advantage of this, done something interesting. I don't want to harp on it too much, but generally speaking, from a game design perspective, I think the first Paper Mario game has a lot more effort put into the explorative qualities of its overworld. Like, look at all this, or look at all this, or look at all this. In Thousand Year Door, it's kind of like, Yeah, you go here, then you go here, then you go here, and now it's dungeon time. The game makes up for this in plenty of other ways though, and definitely leans RPG a lot heavier than adventure. For an adventure purist like myself, it's a little bit of a disappointing step back. Here's where the game really starts throwing everything at you. We got enemies, obstacles, puzzles, and boss fight after boss fight after boss fight. I counted 4, including Bowser, amusingly enough, who finally caught up after trailing way behind you the entire game. The final boss fight isn't the craziest thing ever, strategically speaking, but they did an outstanding job building the stakes. It's you versus a demon from hell, using Peach's body as a vessel. At first, you can't really hurt the boss enough. And wait a minute. Okay, anyway, after you beat the final boss, you get like 1 XP, which I don't really get. But then after that, drumroll please. Yeah, it doesn't really hype anything, does it? There's post-game content. I know, it's commonplace now, but this is the first game I ever played where I beat the game, watched the credits, opened the save file, and the game found a place to pick up the story from the ending and continue. Even explaining that all your partners were gathered to continue the journey. There's a few more things of significance to go over that aren't required to beat the game. The first one I want to talk about is the Pit of 100 Trials. The Pit of 100 Trials hides away to the left of the Thousand-Year Door. Anyone with the smallest inclination for adventure is gonna find it. It's a gauntlet of enemies getting harder and harder every floor you go down. 1 enemy per floor, 100 floors. Ending with a boss fight even more challenging than the final boss. Having side content like this for the players that just can't get enough Paper Mario to throw a real challenge at them is wonderful. I do have some minor nitpicks though. Mainly that the way it scales means it's really hard to have a consistent experience the whole way down. If you go early game and grind, 1, you aren't getting all the way through, and 2, you're going to rack up too much experience and blow through all the enemies in the following 2 areas or so without gaining that much meaningful experience. I know, because that's exactly what I did on this playthrough. I do have a tendency to grind and push, so I probably made it a bit further than the game intended at this point. It just really messed with the experience system. I know this isn't typically the case with this game because I've played all the way through it a number of times. It's just a bit better to save the Pit of 100 Trials for the end of the game. Even then, it took me a few tries. When I hit the end, it took a pretty thorough strategy to complete. Very satisfying. Though, when I got the badge they give you at the end, you have no idea how bad I wished that I went through that before the Thousand-Year Door, so I could play with that badge meaningfully. God damn it. So what is there left to do after all this? Well, the message board, of course. Now, this can be done much earlier in the game. Honestly, I would recommend going back and forth between the main story and the message board. And maybe 10 floors or so down in the Pit of 100 Trials to get the best experience out of everything. That said, if you're stuck or just looking for more to do in the game, this gives you plenty to offer. Otherwise, you're just doing one after the other, and this damn plant guy makes you go back and forth like 3 times. Jesus. Considering this is the last Paper Mario game of its kind before the series changed direction, I'm so glad they put in so much content so you can squeeze every last bit of playtime out of such a great overall package they made. I know I harped on how lacking the adventuring is in some of the areas of Paper Mario the Thousand-Year Door, but it's still more engaging than a lot of RPGs I've played, and it's the only real meaningful complaint I could make. The style this game presents itself in, the level of depth, to the story as well as the extra content, the battle mechanics being the single best iteration in the entire Paper Mario series, I'd recommend this game more highly than any other game I've played, which makes it a real shame that it's never been re-released in any kind of fashion. While Paper Mario gets re-released every time a new iteration of a Nintendo 64 emulator comes out, Thousand Year Door is still only playable on the GameCube and backward compatible on the Wii. I think this game is one Nintendo should be proud of.
Thousand Year Door on the Switch? Please? I'll buy a digital copy. I'll buy a physical one. Fuck, I'll buy both of those twice. Who cares, man? I want to play Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door on my Switch. I know my last request for Ocarina of Time on the Switch dated itself, and that's why I'm saying this, because I really want Thousand Year Door on the Switch. If it's not on the Switch, then whatever Nintendo's next console is... Oh god, I hope I didn't just doom Nintendo by saying that. Oh god, oh man, oh god, oh man, oh god!